Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This evening, we will debate our jail project and how we proceed will be talk of the county for months to come. However, the result comes out, let us remember that we are all friends, neighbors, relatives, and fellow citizens who deserve respect for their decisions, right or wrong. We ask our Lord Almighty to watch and guide us tonight during these deliberations. Amen.
Okay. Roll call. Everyone is present? Okay. Would look for a motion to approve the county board agenda. Motion by Supervisor Swaggle. Second by Supervisor Romden. Any discussion of that motion? You may register your vote. Okay, we have 19 yes, 1 opposed. Motion carries. Would look for a motion to approve the previous county board minutes. Motion by Supervisor Kroll, second by Supervisor Augustine. Is there any discussion of the previous minutes? Any discussion of the motion? You may register your vote. Supervisor Poppy. Are we having a technical difficulty? Mr. Loining, can you please help Supervisor Poppy? What are you trying to suggest? I'm very tech savvy. Just ask my children. Okay, there we are. 20 yes, none opposed, motion carries. Move on to citizens' input.
The board will hear concerns members of the public wish to raise, but will not discuss or take action on any matter until the matter can be placed on an agenda with proper notice to the public. The board welcomes citizens to present their concerns to the board in a professional manner relevant to issues affecting Kewaunee County. Each citizen may take 3 minutes to present their concern, and the board has allotted a total of 20 minutes for this portion of the meeting. Please be mindful the board may halt any disruptive comments and any comments that are threatening, vulgar, or abusive. The first one is from John Pabich, and he asked me to read it for him. So I am writing in support of the construction of the new county jail. This project has long suffered from paralysis through analysis. Farming out inmates to other jails is losing proposition that only gets worse going forward. Putting people on an ankle bracelet without previous incarceration protects no one from people who need to be removed from society for everyone's safety. You have a vote tonight that has implications for many years. Building the jail is the right decision for our families, businesses, communities, and future. I've spent many hours in the preliminary research and design phases of this project. I'm counting on all of you to make it happen. Sincerely, John H. Pabich.
You have others?
Joanne Lazansky.
Good evening, everyone. We all heard Sheriff Joski at the May meeting attest to Kewaunee County Administrator Scott's felt leadership qualities. I am in heartfelt agreement with Matt. I'm taking this opportunity to say a public thank you to Scott for his years of service to Kewaunee County. I am in the 8th decade of my life, and as I get older, it becomes easier and easier for me to speak up, speak my voice and my opinion without worry about adverse consequences or what others may think of me. I have worked in big cities and small cities. I have worked in other states and other countries. I have interviewed hundreds, hired dozens, and fired some. I feel these life experiences make me a pretty good judge of character. I did not know Administrator Felt, but at my first county board meeting in 2020, Scott extended an offer to any new supervisors to meet with him regarding county initiatives in progress and the functions of the county board and its committees. I invited Scott over for coffee, in Scott's case, water, and we talked for 3 hours, safely COVID distance across my long dining room table. This was my first witness to the character of the man who was Kewaunee County Administrator. What was first most evident was Scott's passion for the work and commitment to Kewaunee County, a county not of his upbringing. I was struck by this, as well as his caring and ethical values, along with his forward thinking. These are critical qualities for the position Scott held. I was not wrong in my assessment. Scott's caring for the county is in his DNA. He cannot not care. My assessment of Scott's character was further solidified when speaking with his former colleagues, whom I met at various state conferences. Scott was always held in very high regard. Some of the comments were, "You're very lucky to have him." I value my interactions with Administrator Felt over the past 3+ years. I am saddened to see him leave, but of course, wish him the best in his future. I always say work is called work because that's exactly what it is, work. But we all deserve some degree of enjoyment, recognition, and even some fun in that work. My prayers for you, Scott, are that your future work achieves that for you. Thank you, Scott. Job well done.
Eric Corey.
January 25th, 2000, the recall election set in motion over 20 years of study, recommendation, no decision to proceed, more study, no action, over and over again. For many Kewaunee voters, the recall election isn't even a memory. Remembering can't change how we got here, but remembering can help us not have history repeat itself. The drumbeat of not raising taxes drove the recall and resulted in the abandonment of the best option the county ever had since then for a jail. The county has cycled through multiple studies while costs went up, facilities were downsized, and requirements by the state changed. So today, this board is again staring at an option that is worse than previous options that the county failed to act on. Given the workforce challenges everyone is facing, we can see hiring signs all over. We know what's happening. How can we possibly believe we can find an option where we get a better facility for less money? Please do not kick the can again. Please recognize that investing in a new jail facility will provide a long-term benefit to the county. Whereas spending money on short-term fixes like boarding inmates in neighboring jails is an expense. The money's gone. The hardest job for a good public servant is doing the right thing, even when citizens can't see that an increase in taxes will be an investment in the county's future, in the long term, in their best interest. And when you have to make these hard decisions, many times you have to go back and try and educate, because I think when people understand the basis of your decision, even if it does raise taxes, they're okay with it. Please support Sheriff Joski, vote to proceed, and help stop the downward spiral with an investment in the future that can stop the bleeding from getting worse. If I sat in the chair on the board, I'd feel like I was on the Titanic. There isn't a good option. But you need to make a decision and move forward. Put the life jacket on, jump in the water. Let's get a jail built and not keep this going on for more years of increasing costs, less for our money, while at the same time, we're spending money on short-term fixes. I will say again, please proceed with this jail. Thank you.
Honorable Jeffrey Wisnicki.
Thank you. I'm Jeff Wisnicki. I'm from the city of Kewaunee. I'm also the circuit court judge here in Kewaunee County. Mr. Chair and Board of Supervisors, I rise today in support of moving forward with the jail project. 1 year ago, nearly 1 year ago, this board nearly unanimously approved moving forward on the jail project because the new jail addressed a critical public safety need, likely for generations to come. The project was right-sized after a long and painstaking process to justify every single element of that project. And finally, we had a responsible and financially prudent plan to fund the project. For those three reasons, this board nearly unanimously approved the jail project. Now, a year has passed and the actual bids are in, and unfortunately, the price is higher than we estimated. But what has not changed, ladies and gentlemen, is that this project still addresses the long neglected critical public safety need, likely for generations. That has not changed. What has also not changed is this jail project is right-sized for Kewaunee County's needs, and every element is justified. And finally, we still have a responsible and financially prudent plan. In fact, I understand Mr. Kunich came up with about 3 options that present a responsible and financially prudent plan to pay for this project with minimal impact to the taxpayer. So the very 3 reasons that you approved this a year ago are still present today, in my estimation. Now, you members of the board, I think the county owes you a debt of gratitude. For the last several years, you, along with the administration and staff, have done a great job managing the county's finances. There's no doubt about that. We are in a great financial position such that we're able to pay a large portion of this project with money we have on hand. You've done a great job, and that money is in the bank account. Ladies and gentlemen, you and I were both elected to make difficult decisions. The electors put us here to make these decisions. And I'm urging you to make that important decision today. I urge you to make a decision that will take care of a critical public safety need for generations. I urge you to make a wise, financially prudent, and forward-thinking decision. I humbly ask that you make the right decision. The right decision for Kewaunee County is to move forward with this jail project. Thank you, and have a good night.
Phil Steppen.
Good evening. My name is Phil Steffen. I'm a retired lieutenant from Brown County. I've been a Kewaunee resident for 19 years. I live and breathe Kewaunee County now. What you've been hearing, you guys have done a phenomenal job getting a jail project to this point. Some of you may or may not have been on the earlier projects. Some of you may have been. I went through similar things in Brown County that you guys are facing today. It's a difficult decision. However, you've heard it time and again, it's the right decision. Things will not get cheaper. This afternoon, I left work. I went to get a burger and a root beer on my way down. Cost me $9 for a double cheese and a root beer. And I thought, wow, but I really wanted that. I wanted that. That was my idea, so I bought it. We were talking, I'm also the town clerk for Anape. And we were talking at a board meeting, and right now to build a house is $300 a square foot. Wow. That's kind of crazy, isn't it? That's like a 1,200-foot ranch is $300 a square foot. But people want to build a new house. You good people have an opportunity to do something you don't want to do. You're going to have to spend some money because we need a jail. I've seen this. I've seen it firsthand. I was a security director at the jail for 17 years in Brown County. I saw all the fights. I was part of the discussions and the back and forth and the cost savings and the cost losings and value engineering. You guys have done a phenomenal job getting this package to this point. Don't let it fall. We need a jail. The jail we have will not stand litigation. It will fail. That is money that's cost that you don't see or you don't hear about. But that jail will not stand a lawsuit. Why am I saying this? I've been sued in federal court more times than I care to count. Okay. Litigations come with jails. Our jail will not survive a litigation, and it will cost money. It'll cost money that we don't have and don't want to spend on. So if you look at things, we have an object to educate our people. You have an object, I didn't realize, but Judge Wisnicki was saying there's 3 plans out there that aren't going to cost us as much as what it's expected. Sticker shocks is terrible. However, you've got a tough decision, but in reality, it's fairly easy. We have to do the right thing. That's build the jail. Thank you for your time.
Joe Massler.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. It's gonna be a tough act to follow these guys because they said pretty much everything that was pretty accurate. I was in law enforcement over 30 years, Green Bay, and I know Phil. A little different twist. Last night I was at the Brown County Public Safety meeting and Sheriff Delane reported they are currently short of 24 correction officers. The jail yesterday morning was at 98% capacity, of which the majority were awaiting hearings and sentencing and stuff. So they were not just serving time. They had 31 persons shipped out to other jails. Cost approximately $1,395 a day or $4,185 a month, without including transport or other costs and stuff. Sheriff Joski has touched on this in the past. Last month, Sheriff Joski said that his job was to take care of the prisoners and stuff, and that he would do it out of an outhouse. Well, I had 3 words for him if I worked in the jail. I'd say, speak for yourself. The staff that works in the jail, they cover the shift 24/7, 365 days a year. The people that work in this building work 8 to 4 Monday through Friday. I think our jailers and staff should have a decent environment to work in instead of something that's patched up over and over again. We talk about the cost. A guy gets on a charter flight and asks if he would like to rent a parachute. It costs $200. Passenger says no. During the flight, the captain announces, "We're having engine problems. I'm not sure I can correct it." Passenger tells flight attendant, "I will take one of those parachutes," and is told the price is $2,000. Passenger says, "That's not what you said before." Attendant says, "That was our pre-flight sale." Your jail inspector is going to come along, and I've heard the topics on that over and over again. And the bids that came in were over budget. So the jail inspector comes in and this doesn't pass, we vote it down or whatever. And then they come down and they say, "Okay, you're done, you're closed." Okay, now all of a sudden you put it up for rebids. So now it comes in at 10 million over. So they shut you down, and then you still got to transport your prisoners and stuff to other places and stuff. If we send this to a referendum, and I really don't want to see a referendum because my vote was to hire somebody here, sitting here, to take care of that. I don't need to vote again to pass it. So I would ask that we move on and get this jail done. As Mr. Phil said, I was there when they rebuilt Brown County's jail, and that was a nightmare. So thank you all. Have a good night.
Sheriff Matt Joskey.
I wanted to come up during this time because I don't know whether or not I'll actually be asked to come up. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. So I wanted to make sure that we didn't get through this evening, get through this important moment in time without a few things said. And what I'm going to talk about tonight, again, regardless of how tonight turns out, I want to talk about gratitude. I want to talk about how grateful I am for all of those who've been part of this project. I want to talk about how grateful I am to all of you for the thoughtful questions, for the valuable input. I want to thank those of you who are new to the board that maybe weren't on in the early days. And I want to thank you. I'm grateful for the trust and the faith you have in the work that was done by the earlier committees or by the earlier boards. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that initial jail study group, for their willingness to embark upon this venture. When, as was said back then, there was still a lot of haze hanging over the whole jail issue, and yet we had the courage to move forward. I want to thank the current jail study for grabbing a hold of the work that had been done and continuing that work and refining that work to get us to where we are today. I want to thank I want to thank Chairman Bob Widener, who was in a leadership role when this all began, for his leadership, for his vision. And I want to thank our current chair, Dan Olson, for continuing that vision, for continuing those efforts, for challenging us to refine where we can and to be supportive a year ago when, as was stated, it was voted, this is the right choice. This is the right decision. Numbers might have been a little different, but it was the right decision then, it's the right decision now. I want to thank our jail inspector for all of her guidance over the many years, for allowing us to navigate in our current environment, for being flexible and understanding the limitations that we have as a community and allowing us to navigate through those limitations. For Venture Architects, Samuel's group, for the guidance you've given us, for your professionalism, your dedication, your honesty, to maybe not say what we wanted to hear, but to say what needed to be heard. So thank you for that. I want to, of course, thank the staff of the Kewaunee County Sheriff's Department, their exceptional call that they have followed in serving our community, for working in the environment that they've worked all these years and providing exceptional care to those inmates, those men and women who are mandated to our care. To the community as a whole, and specifically to those members of the community who are in our care. That's what it's about. This is about serving our community. We have our community as a whole, and we have those members of our community that are in our care. They're still members of our community. And I want to thank our men and women of the Sheriff's Department for the compassionate, empathetic, and professional treatment that they provide to those men and women as well. And to our community, for appreciating the gravity of this situation, for appreciating the moment in time that we are currently in, for the support that they've given me over the many years. Again, I don't know where this will go tonight, but I will walk away from this building tonight grateful to be your sheriff, grateful for the men and women that I've been able to work with, and grateful for the decision that you folks have to make. Thank you.
No others have signed up. Are there any others in the public who wish to speak to the board this evening? Are there any others who wish to speak? Are there any others who wish to speak to the board? Seeing none, we'll move on. Prior to going into appointments, I just want to give a reminder on rules of order, Robert's Rules of Order, and of course, everybody agreed to previously. You get 3 opportunities to speak to an item. That's pretty straightforward. If there are questions of those who are expert on a particular topic, questions of an informational nature are certainly appropriate. Appointments. Prepared?
County Administrator Interview Committee.
Do I have a motion? Supervisor Yonke moves, seconded by Supervisor Haskey. Is there discussion? Supervisor Swagel. Yes, sir. You gotta have, there you go.
How many people are going to be on this? And
It is in the packet.
it's in the
which
packet.
you,
Okay. Sir, I'm sorry.
received.
I'm sorry,
It
sir.
is, yeah, I'll read it since there's a question.
Dan Olson, Gary Poppy,
Thank you. I found it.
Oh.
Very good.
Jeff Bolenwider, Joanne Lazansky, and Tom Romden.
Thank you.
All right. Other questions? All right. You may register your vote. 18 in favor and 2 opposed. Motion carries. Annual reports. There are none since the administrator is not able to be here this evening. Committee reports, we'll take these as a whole. If there are questions on any of the minutes which you have reviewed. Any questions on any minutes? All right. First reading of
Mr. Chair.
ordinance? Yes, Supervisor Romden.
I just have a comment on the Finance Committee.
Yes, sir.
You don't have those minutes.
We do
We had a
not.
meeting tonight at 5:30 in reference to the resolutions that are coming up on the agenda. And based on the information that was discussed at the Finance Committee, the Finance Committee recommended is making a recommendation to the board to proceed with option C on your outline options that you have available. And that's only a recommendation, but that recommendation passed the Finance Committee 3 yes, 2 no. So just for your information,
Was three yes, 2 no
3 yes, 2 no,
for option C?
option C.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Questions on any other minutes, any other discussion? Supervisor Kennard?
Chairman, the only thing that I'd like to bring up, if the different departments, I had a couple people ask me, they're having a hard time watching these when they're zoomed. I know not everybody does it, but there's issues where the audio's working and the video's not, or vice versa. So if we are going to do that for these meetings, let's try to make sure that our tech department can be there to help out so people can truly get a good vision of what's going on at our meetings. So,
Thank
okay,
you.
thanks.
I'll forward that to the IT department. I'm guessing that those issues probably take place at the meetings you're not able to be present at. Yeah. Well, I guess that just makes people all the more eager to have you around. Right. Any other questions on any other minutes? All right. We'll move on. First reading of ordinance.
A resolution granting the petition for Bridge Aid, Town of Franklin, fiscal impact $8,050 from County Aid Bridge Fund.
Motion by Supervisor Mastler, second by Supervisor Lukes. I did it on the path. Is there discussion on this resolution? On the motion? Any discussion? Questions on the motion? All in favor? You may register your vote. 20 yes, none opposed. Motion carries. Whenever you're prepared for the next resolution.
A resolution granting the petition for Bridge Aid, Town of Luxembourg.
Motion by Supervisor Poppy, second by Supervisor Augustine. Is there discussion of the motion? All right. You may register your vote. 20 yes, none opposed. Motion carries. Whenever you're prepared for the next resolution.
A resolution granting the petition for Bridge Aid, Town of Luxembourg, fiscal impact $8,800 from County Aid Bridge Fund.
Motion by Supervisor Poppy, second by Supervisor Patricia. Is there any discussion of the motion? Very well. You may register your vote. 20 yes, none opposed. Motion carries. Whenever you're prepared for the next motion.
appointing interim county administrator.
Motion by Supervisor Gillett, second by Supervisor Vollenweider. Are there any questions on the motion? Supervisor Swaggle.
Now, with the interim, is he going to get the same insurance and
No.
retirement benefits? and all
No,
that?
there is no insurance and benefits as it states in the resolution.
Thank you, sir.
That
Just
would
for
be
clarification.
The
Thank you. sir.
salary, yep. Any other questions on that motion? All right, you may register your vote. 20 yes, none opposed. Motion carries. Whenever you're prepared for the next resolution.
A resolution approving the construction of a new jail facility and awarding the contracts for the construction of the jail facility. Fiscal impact. Authorizing the construction of a $33,283,391 jail facility project.
Motion by Supervisor Masteler, second by Supervisor Lazansky. Is there discussion of the motion? Supervisor Patricia.
I'm going to take this opportunity since the majority of you stare at the back of my bald head the majority of the time. I'm going to sit and maybe give you a better view, maybe not. I guess it's dependent on open for interpretation. I've spoken to a number of you on the board, and I both respect and appreciate all the different comments and concerns that everybody has. Those concerns I share. When I first got elected to this board, being in the village of Luxembourg, I was not in favor at all to have another penny of my taxes increased. Our village had a 69% increase in our taxes. I had $200 extra a month in my mortgage payment because of that. So the increase of taxes on our constituents, on our hardworking folks in our county, is not lost on me. The reason why I changed my mind is because I went to visit Sheriff Josky and the jail on my birthday. That's the first, and I hope the last time I'm ever in jail on my birthday or any other day. But going through there, I felt like I was on the set of the Green Mile. It is an antiquated facility, and what our sheriff and the deputies are doing in that facility is commendable. And speaking to them, I spoke to Nancy, the state inspector, today. It's only reinforced my opinion that doing nothing is not an option. I don't want to spend more money than we have to. I don't want to kick this can down the road. And I don't think we even have an option of kicking the can down the road, because when I talked to our state inspector today, I asked her to give me an honest assessment. If we do nothing, what can we realistically expect? And she said that she would give me not a possible, but a real world situation that happened to another county. There was a county where they were doing work. One of the walls did not pass inspection from one of the engineers. She shut them down. I asked if that was a possibility for us. And before I even got to finish the sentence, she said absolutely. With the current condition, age of our facilities, I do not think it's an if, but a when. And I do not see how we are being fiscally prudent and being responsible to our taxpayers if we sit and say, no, we're going to keep finding different solutions and we're going to try to make the old jail work. I don't believe that is an option of if we can do it. And the truth is everybody agreed almost unanimously, has been stated earlier, last year. We don't find ourselves in any better of a spot. Our costs are going up. The jail is not fixing itself. And as was stated earlier, the electorate elected us to do a job, to sit and study and talk to the experts. I am not an expert in construction. You can ask anybody that knows me. Whenever I'm helping friends build, I'm the gopher. I'm not the one that's hammering nails. But I talk to people that do. and I talked to the state inspector. I don't believe that we have any other option. And I know that some disagree, and I respect your concerns. And I know that everybody that is here that has a different opinion is doing it because they're doing it for the benefit of the taxpayers. We care about our citizens in this county, every one of us on this board. I hope that everybody considers where we are, and not that we want to be here, but that is where we are.
Any other discussion? Supervisor Augustine?
Good evening, fellow board members. I want to first take the time to thank everyone that was involved in this process to get here and where we are today. I'm gonna cut right to the point, not get into all the scenarios how we got here. We made a promise to the taxpayers when we moved forward with this new jail. We said we would do it for $25 million. And we have hired consultants to guide us on this path. And we were told that we could do it for 25 million, and that included inflation and rising cost. When we got the bids back, it was sticker shock to myself and the board. I think this project was too aggressive in today's construction market to think we could bid it in May with open bids in June, accept in July, and then start work in August. I believe these bids are higher than normal because of the time frame of the project of the building and building through winter. I think we need to rebid the project with a realistic start of next spring or summer to get the project within budget. I know some are going to say the cost is just going to go up, but I disagree. I think we need to get a better bid due to such a short timeline. At this time, I cannot support putting extra money onto the taxpayers and the county just to get the project done. We need to keep this project within budget or find other options if we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Other discussion? Supervisor Kroll?
After what Aaron said, I do agree with him. I think everyone put a lot of work into this. We did say we were going to keep it at around 25 million. When that budget came back and it was at over 8 or around 8 million over, I think we need to go back in and look at it. Right now, with telling or putting out those bids and saying that we want everything ready to go by August, there's a lot of construction people that are full. So they're going to put a high bid in. I think if we go back and say we want to rebid this for spring, you're going to see a couple different prices. Also on this sheet, if you looked, there were some bids that were like not even in the ballpark. They were completely, one of them doesn't even match up. Like it's like they missed something on the page. I just think that right now construction is really busy. It's prime time. So these guys threw out these bids. If we get it, we get it. If we don't, we don't. And they threw out a high bid. I think we go back in and rebid. I'm not saying I do not want the jail, but I think we have to be fair to the taxpayers and say we tried something, because $8 million is a lot of money over a budget. Something had, and they also told us that when we did when we were talking about this, they were saying something that they put in about, with the economy the way it is, but 8 million is a lot over the budget. I just think we should, if we can, to rebid it for spring.
Thank you. Other discussion? Supervisor Brown?
I guess I'm just concerned that if we spend this kind of money on this project, when you look at a lot of the buildings that we currently have in this county and look at the square footage that we've increased the operations in this county over the last 20 years, I mean, it's astounding. And we don't do enough to maintain the current buildings that we have. Now, I'm not saying that jail over there is in great shape. I really wish we would have had some firm numbers on what it would have taken to make that a more workable space. But when I look around at the buildings that we have, I see so many open spaces that are just not being used in this county. We pay to heat them, we pay to air condition them, we pay to clean them, maintain them. And there's just how many square feet that we have that hardly ever gets used. And even when you look at this floor plan of this new jail, how many rooms in that facility are just, they're open, empty spaces that have no designation on them. I mean, we've got a kitchen area designed in that building that's almost 40 feet square, and there's one person that's going to work in there at a time. and a 40 by 40 kitchen. We have an area with the dispatchers in there that has 4 desks in it. We only have 2 dispatchers. I don't know, I see a lot of wasted space. In the current buildings that we have, we're not doing enough to maintain the current buildings that we have, and we're gonna add another building. Our population in this county hasn't changed for almost 70 years. We have 30 inmates. My question is, why are we looking at a 52-bed jail when we only have an average population of 30? And I checked out this one letter we got from Charles Schmidt that evidently served on the county board, and looked at this Jackson County in Iowa. And I realize it's a different state. They probably have different regulations, but the county has almost the same population as we have. Their tax base is almost the same. And they built a 32-bed jail, a pod style, like what we're looking at, 17,000 square foot. And they did it for $6 million. How'd they do that? I mean, that's a big difference. I mean, if they did this for $18 million, well, then I'd say, well, maybe it's regulations or something, but they built what they needed in a very similar county population wise. And they did it for $6 million. And we're talking about $33 million. I don't know. I think we're going to stretch ourselves so far that the maintenance on the current buildings that we have is going to get worse. And we're going to be in this endless cycle where we don't take care of the buildings that we have. We wait until they're not worth repairing, and then we need another one again. And then two, we talk about all the stuff that we pulled out of this building, all the needs are gone, and it's just what we want, or just what we need, I should say. I'm sorry. But are we going to be back in the same space? I mean, when we built that jail in 1968, that's what it was. We built the bare minimum, just what we needed, right? Is this county going to be back to the same drawing board in 70 years with this building because we pulled too much out of it? There's a lot of extra space in that building that I don't think needs to be there, but I don't know. I just worry that function wise in the building, are we going to end up pulling too much out of it? And like I said, 70 years, we're going to be back in the same situation where we're saying that this building's not functionable anymore. So I don't know. We spend $35,000 a year right now to send out prisoners, which is not a lot. We're talking about $678,000 to run this new facility. That's never going to go away, even after 20 years we pay for it. That's a big difference. That's a really big difference. And realistically, that 678 in no time at all is going to be 800,000, $1 million. I don't know. In light of what this Jackson County built this jail for, I really think that we need to really take a look at that, or at least take a look at this jail and see what they did. Because that price difference that's ridiculous. So I don't know how they did it, but I think we seriously need to take a look at it.
Supervisor Patricio?
Do we have anybody as a representative from Samuel's group or the architects that could speak to any of this?
What specifically?
The concerns that we have as far as the costs, the size.
Kurt Bruner here tonight. Is the I don't know what the official title is. Got a lot of them. And he's from Antigo, so.
Give me whatever name you'd like. Yeah, there was a lot said there. And I guess at the end, I wasn't quite sure what you were referencing. It sounds like it's too big, but yet it's not going to be big enough in the future. So we'll do our best to answer your questions. First and foremost, comparing a jail from a different county or state to what we have to abide by here isn't a fair representation. People do it. When was the project built? There's a lot. Markets, all those things change.
2022 is when it was built.
So here's the thing that I want you to walk you back a year ago. You referenced 25 million. I was the one that told you that. You remember the discussion that we had about the markets, and you're like, is that where it's going to be? I explained to the inflation and the factors that we put on it. We came back here February, March of this year, and a warning, here's what's happening with the market, right? While we're doing that, we're making reductions in this project. Not reductions that are going to compromise this building in 30 to 50 years, but elements that we can reduce without sacrificing quality and performance. Okay. I don't know how many of you are jail experts. I don't. I can tell you that we had jail experts around the table. We had members of this board sitting in many of those meetings critiquing it. Talking about Scott, the individual Scott was beating us up. You guys aren't going to spend one more dime. We're going to cut this out and cut that out. No, we're not going to make it so that it's compromised. This is a tight design. You can't build a 32-bed jail in Kewaunee County and expect that that's going to serve your purpose. It's not. The DOC requires that you have an 85% factor. So that's how we got to the numbers. The 52 with being able to add additional beds gives you your future for 50 years. That's it. When we say there's no frills in here, what I mean by that is in a jail, there are no frills. You build block walls, you put some steel in them, you pour concrete in them. You've got doors that have to function, electronics that are tied back into elements. There is no massing or elements that can just be reduced in regards to this design. Could you say, yeah, let's go ahead and build a 60-bed jail instead of something that's at 85? Yep, we can do that. The problem that you will do then is you are going to reduce your classification. And I don't know how many of you are aware of classification, but the sheriff has talked about it. The jail study is committee has went into that. Classification will determine if your jail functions for you in the future. The inmates that you are dealing with right now are going to continue to change. You're going to need more and more classification. So this design, when you see the rooms that are in there, that's on purpose. That's so that you can separate inmates. You can house the population in Kewaunee County properly, safely, and efficiently. So there's a lot of things that are in there. Rebidding this will not work. But if we rebid this, because I was asked to talk to contractors and say, well, you honor your bid. I'm a low bidder, right? If I put a fat number on that low bid and the construction manager comes to me and says, hey, county boards wants to think about it for a month. Do you want to sit on that number? Would you say, yes, I'll keep that number, or no, I'm not going to honor the number? If I had a big fat goose egg there, big dollars that are just dripping out of it, I go, yeah, take whatever time you need. Just let me know. You know, the answer that I got is no, because costs are going to go up. They're going to go up. You can look at the bid categories that are in those lists that are there. There is many categories where there's multiple bidders. You're in a market where people want to bid. I just went through last year where we were getting one bid. Several of them, we didn't get any bid, zero. I had to rebid it multiple times, 2 or 3 times. You got good bid coverage in this market. Are the numbers higher than what we anticipated? Absolutely. Did I not put enough of an escalation factor on it? Absolutely. But I can tell you right now, the numbers did not go up because we over-designed or built this design here. This is an efficient design, and rebidding it is not a solution. And I want to ask you something. You guys want to make a recommendation to your taxpayers to look out for their best interest, to say, let's bid it again. Let's bid it for spring. What happens when we bid it in spring and it comes back and it's 10% higher? It's another $3 million. Then what do we do? That's the reality. You have to think about the planning for the county. Other things that went into this design, I know you don't have the site plan up here, but this site has been planned so that in the future you can move your county offices, you can move the courthouse out there to this campus. This is the first step of a master plan for the county. There's infrastructure to be able to support that. There were good decisions that were made in this planning to make this thing effective. So I don't know what other questions that you had that you wanted me to address. If there's other elements that are there, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But rebidding it is not the answer to this. So,
You have any questions for any further questions for Mr. Berner while we got him up here?
and I just one more that I want. There was a question that was asked of me outside of this. Is it going to get done for 33 million? Yes. Look at the line item that's on there of a contingency of $1.5 million. All of the rest of those numbers that you have in there are hard bid numbers. You have a bid bond that says this contractor will do the work for this amount of money. As of July 28th, that guarantee goes away. Your guarantee right now is you have them in hand. If you let them leave, they won't come back. The $1.5 million of contingency will assure you that that's the number that it will be. You are right there. I don't remember who challenged me, but let's get the bids in. This is an estimate. We're guessing at this point. Let's get the bids in. We're there. You have those numbers in front of you. Those numbers are locked in. So.
Supervisor Poppy?
There was two items that nobody bid on.
Yep, we got a rebid on there. So in your packet, that is a summary that's there. I'm glad you brought that up. I had given that to Dave. So Dave put that in your packet if you want to look at it. It was bid category number 6, general construction. We do have CD Smith. We did get a bid for that. We actually rebid 11A detention for JTA builders because they were the ones that were low the first time, but we had to rebid it because they weren't a qualified contractors. They did come back. Their number actually went down. 21 fire suppression, Apex was low. JF Ahern also bid it. So we did get 2 numbers there. So you see that the overall number on the bottom is now 32,960. What it was is we had the fire suppression went down. The other 2 were up slightly. Our FF&E, we did get some final numbers. So we were able to reduce that by $100,000. And then the CM fee and the design fee were reduced based on what that number was that we had previous. So your number right now is 32,960. And that was a late number that I got to Dave. So that's why you're still seeing the 33,283 on your resolution.
Supervisor Vollenweider?
So the majority of the board has recognized the need for the jail, the new jail. And that the proposed jail is bare bones. It's going to cover our needs and everything else. And we voted as a mass majority to move forward with it. And yes, when we get nearly an $8 million sticker shock of an increase to the project, I guess my question is, at what point is it too much? At what point is it just out of reach? I don't have a solution. I'm just saying, at what point is it out of reach that, you know, we can just empty all of our coffers and borrow another couple $1 million? And I'm hearing a guarantee of $33 million. What if something is found that wasn't covered in the bid packet and it goes to a change order and that goes beyond the contingency? You're saying that won't happen?
Telling you right now that historically, the contingency that I have put on there, we have completed projects of this size with that contingency.
It could be more is all I'm saying.
I can say that about anything. Just like I could tell you that it could be $40 million when you bid it next spring.
Supervisor Lukes?
A year ago, when we decided to move forward and we came up with this number of 25 million, I think most of us agreed that it was time to move forward. But here now the finance committee is recommending option C. And option C basically takes all of our savings or most of our savings to put towards this project, only borrowing $1 million more. So our roads are falling apart in this county. There's other buildings that need to be fixed. In order to do any of that work, we're gonna have to borrow more money. Because if we just let everything go, then everything will fall apart. So we're throwing everything at this. And it's not even the cost of the building, it's the cost that we're taking everything that we have in reserve and putting it towards this. And I can't agree with that.
Other discussion? Supervisor Patricia?
I'd like to ask Mr. Kunish to speak to the state of the finances with option C and E in particular.
Hold on 1 second first. Were there any other questions for Mr. Berner before I let him go?
Yes.
We'll come back to Mr. Kunish. Okay, you had.
Just one quick question. I know we always talk about what we need in this project and that this is what we need instead of what we want. 9A tiling on the bid sheet. Is that tiling, excavating, drainage tiling, or is that tiling in the building?
It's tiling in the bathroom floors.
That answers my question.
All right. Are there any other questions for Mr. Berner? Okay, so question for Mr. Kunish. You got the question unless you need it repeated.
What was the question?
Need it repeated.
I would like you to speak to the state of the finances, specifically option C and option E, but what this would do to our finances, specifically to the where we would be with our general fund and savings.
Okay. Right.
Hold on one second. We're not able to put this up on the screen, are we, Mr. Whining? This sheet here, probably not. Okay, well, then the public will have to envision.
Okay. The updated sheet that was on your desk tonight added actually two options. One, the referenced option E. That was a specific request to calculate what it would be if we issued 2 million of debt instead of 1 or 3. And option F, I just thought it made sense to show what the numbers would be if the entire increase of 7.7 million was funded by the bond issue. So those are the calculations for that purpose. To answer the question, how will we end up? Obviously, C, with $1 million less debt issued than option E, we would be $1 million better off. It digs less into the Economic Development Fund. It would take the existing fund balance of 1.2 million. It will take the remaining, most of the remaining Dominion payments between 1 and 26. Now that's a calculation. Whatever comes in first is what we'll take. We're going to have some broadband loan payments before that, but we can take that. We can still have some left, actually, the remaining broadband payments going forward. It doesn't dig as deep. It doesn't hurt as much, but the trade-off to that is obviously we're issuing 2 million of debt at the current moment. There was one other part of that question.
Just what it would do, where we would be financially as a county in regards to the savings and what we'd be able to do moving forward.
Sure. So right now, maintenance in particular on buildings is budgeted each year at the level maintenance typically requests. So building maintenance in general is a part of our operational budget. We routinely budget 600,000 to 700,000 of outlay, which usually includes bigger items, not gigantic ones. And that would cover typically building maintenance improvements, not big construction items like new buildings or major renovations. Those would be similar to this. It would have to go through its own process. So we would still be able to maintain. It does take away some of the fund balance that we currently have in the Economic Development Fund. So right now, the sources of that was the Dominion payments. And with that so far, we've created a loan fund. We have also made 2 loans for our broadband improvement, and the rest is there and not used for a specific purpose. I will mention though that currently the $40,000 going to KC EDC has come out of their last 3 years, but the budget as presented by the administrator has included that as a part of the general fund and general revenues. That would still be able to continue. So that's a small part of this that wouldn't really be affected. What would be affected going forward is let's say we got a third request by for a broadband expansion. The money isn't there for the current year, certainly, probably not the next 3 to 5 years before we could consider something like that again. I know housing was tossed out. Housing and improvements was thrown out there as an idea. I don't believe the board's ever acted on that. If that was to go forward, the likely place to look would be the Economic Development Fund. So that couldn't happen for 3 to 5 years. We do know that there are other projects on the horizon, including looking at the highway facilities right now. And the last part of it, how does that affect our operations? And this was a comment before by somebody too. My calculation of taking an additional $1,907,886,000, that's from the general fund, purposefully and specifically takes the amount in there, makes sure that we are well above our internal policy of our fund balance. Our fund balance policy that we set 2016, 2017, and have followed ever since says the general fund should have 25 to 35% of the annual expenses in order for us to have the specific cash flow, set aside money for things that may come up. And we have followed that ever since. We've also had in recent years up to 70% in that fund. And again, we've had some unknown items previously. We had a landfill for a while. We've had human services that was a question mark and other items. those needs have, for all practical purposes, take care of themselves. We don't necessarily need 70%, but I'm not going to go down to 35%, because I'm also looking at how the bond rating agencies will compare us. We know we need 25 to 35%. We're going to stay at 45% intentionally, because that's about the point where the bond rating agencies compare us to other municipalities. And I think that's a good comparison level, even though it's well above what we've calculated that we need. And I will point that out in very specific terms during the rating call, should we issue more bonds. As far as the options, yeah, there are 4 options on the sheet. I stated last time that option D was calculated at the request of what if we don't issue any more debt. I said last time that my recommendation was issuing $1 million or more. That is still true today. Option D gives a picture of what it would look like, but I cannot recommend doing that. And I said in finance too, I would not run my household that way. I would not run a business that way. I certainly can't recommend anybody else doing either. On the other end of the spectrum, we could issue another 6.5 million, taking the taxpayers into consideration. I don't think that's necessary. The 3 columns in between can accomplish both, evening out the effect on taxpayers, not dipping so far into our fund balances that we shoot ourselves in the foot. And again, one more on option D. There was a time before I started here 8 years ago. I don't know the exact year, but our county treasurer told us about in December, when we typically have our low cash point, about requesting deposits from departments to make sure that our checks cleared. Option D would head us in that direction, and that is not where we want to be. We've done a lot of work between 2015 and 2023 to dig ourselves out of the hole. We can add some more resources without requiring all of the debt, but there's a happy medium. And if I had to pick one, option E seems to be the happy medium. Any other questions? And did I cover everything? Thank you.
Very thorough answer. Supervisor Gillett.
First off, thank you everyone for the time that has been put into this. It's a very serious matter. I am in support of moving forward. I don't like the numbers. I don't want to see my taxes, nor my neighbors, or maybe even my adversaries' taxes go up. But I do have a couple questions. Were all 5 options available at the finance meeting when we had the recommendation of option C?
Are you referring to
Tonight's meeting?
Yes, they had all of these
Yes.
available.
All those were
That
available.
was
Okay.
a 3-2 vote.
And then in regards to the resolution, couple resolutions, it's my understanding that the current resolution could pass with a 50% vote. With a majority. Then we move on to how to finance, which is a difference. And Corp Counsel, could you explain further? Because there are multiple scenarios that could play out. We could pass this current resolution and then elect not to pass any funding resolution, which
Different.
leads us into or leaves us in a rather odd predicament.
That's different than what you indicated last month, Mr. Defo.
Which question would you like me to
Or-
take first, Mr. Chair?
We can pass this with simple,
So the resolution that's in front of the board currently, that is approving the construction and awarding the bids, that requires a simple majority. The resolution for issuing additional bond would require a 3/4 vote. And the resolution transferring non-budgeted funds requires 2/3.
So if I may, Mr. Chair.
yeah.
Yeah, so that, and to, I think, go more to your point, Nick, there are contingencies built into this. So if the board approves this resolution and we can't find a way to fund this, or we can't agree on a way to fund this, then this goes no further.
and then the process would be over and we would start from scratch, or we have current, I mean, it is a possible
Well, the-
scenario. So how does, and maybe this involves bringing the Samuelson group back up, but I mean, are we null and void? How long are our drawings good for?
I think we have until the 27th of July,
28th,
if I heard from
July
Kurt correctly.
28th, right? 28th. You got till
So
the 28th to figure it out, but
For
if
the-
you,
Current bids, but
Correct.
how long would the drawings be good for? I realize that it would need to be rebid and that could change the end project dollar amount. But are the drawings good for a year, 2 years, 5 years?
I think that might be a better question for the. Samuels group or our
I
architect.
forget your name. Brad Quasney.
We have.
So drawings are good for 2 years. There you go. Okay, so if construction begins within 2 years, you're good on the drawings. Simple enough. All right, other questions, further discussion? Supervisor Lukes,
I'm
withdraw. Okay, you're Xed out. Supervisor Patricia.
I appreciate very much those that have brought up the concerns of costs overrun. If we didn't have folks like that, this and other projects like this would definitely be runaway spending. Not to say that this hasn't come close to that, but their concerns are much appreciated, and we need folks that are looking at every dime and cent and reason to cut cost. That being said, one of the things that I also spoke to Nancy about today, our state inspector, was something that the I believe Clark from Manapee, the former Brown County Sheriff deputy, said, and that was that we are significantly exposed to litigation with our current facilities. And as has been said, our current resolution is whether we move forward or not. And I still say that we are in the same spot that we were a year ago, that not doing anything or trying to patch the current facility is not a viable option. And I spoke to all but one member of the village board, as well as the Luxembourg police chief and village president. And to a single person, everybody said, get this done. I have spoken to residents in my neighborhood that have said they're not a big fan of the tax increase. But after speaking to them at length, explaining what our options are, it was the same answer, get this done. And I think we sit here knowing that we have a problem that needs to be solved. And the first resolution before us is whether to move forward or not. And I think that everybody has said that they agree that doing nothing is not a very good option.
Supervisor Yonke.
I was just wondering if you noticed that under public comment, no one spoke against the jail project tonight. I thought that was interesting. I've been getting calls about the jail and was told by only one person to vote no. And that was pretty much just to get another set of bids. I had a resident with a $800,000 assessment on his home. And he told me to vote and go ahead and build it. I represent the town of Montpelier, and my board knows about the bids and the extra cost. They don't want to gamble and wait a few months for new bids and kick it down the road. They think that it would be a big mistake to push it down the road. I've shown the different options to them. They would like to see either option B, to borrow 3 million at 35 cents per thousand, or 2 million at 30 cents per thousand. Otherwise, the county may become strapped for cash. Tom says they voted on option C, but I think Paul's done a great job at keeping taxes down. So for these reasons, I'm gonna vote yes on a new jail facility.
Any further discussion? Supervisor Dell?
I just wanted to say a little bit about construction. I've been in the construction business for quite a few years. And I deal with 18 contractors. And I talked to a few people today on the board and they were concerned about, and I was the same way. You get $8 million upcrease. That's crazy. Somebody didn't talk to these contractors and say, you know, this county really wants to go ahead with this, see what you can do, give us your bottom line and so forth. I have done it in the past. All of a sudden today, on my email, I have a sheet that comes from a big contractor and they're doing a retirement home. And the person says, they waited a year, they want you to relook at it and see what you can do with the price. Well, as everybody knows, a year ago today, it did not change. If anything, I lost a little bit of money. I told them I will still honor my price and I'll still do it for that. That is the only way that you're going to get this building to come down in price. Is it going to happen? Probably not. So I went around and I contacted about 8 of the 18 contractors and I asked them a question. I told them what's going on here. And I said, you guys do a lot of construction in a year. I said, what are you foreseeing in the future? Because everybody says if, ands, or buts, but we don't know what the future is really looking forward to us. So I'm leading myself towards somebody that knows what's going on in the business. They all looked at me and laughed. I said, you think it's going to go down? They said, no. They said, Duck, if you're lucky, it is going to stay the same. So that is one part that kind of changed my mind and said, just kind of hopefully telling some of the people here to ease their mind. In the future, it's not going to go down. Just like the gentleman said that came up and talked over here, he was right. It is not going to go down. And the only reason why I'm letting people know this is maybe by listening to people that's in the construction business, it might ease your mind and make your vote. Thanks.
Other discussion? Supervisor Swagel?
Thank you, board. Thank you, chairperson. Yes, I was the dissenting vote last year, as most of you know. And my constituents have told me the same thing. Repair, take care of the old building. Do not vote for this, so I am voting no. If you would have taken care of the present jail, as Sheriff Joski told me, I don't want to hurt his feelings, respectfully. The roof has not been seal coated in the last 16 years or as long as he's been sheriff. So the maintenance has not been done from my neighbors are telling me. So we got pushed into this situation. So if the jail would have been maintained, we might not be in this situation. And someone says, you can't, okay, so, excuse me, doing the best interest of the people. Well, I represent the people. My tax, what I pay for taxes compared to a lot of people isn't much of my small farm, my old buildings. But the taxpayers are telling me no. So I can't go against my constituents or the taxpayers. And then that survey that I think Scott Felt did, correct, about what the people thought in the county. They responded saying that safety is not a great concern. They're satisfied with the safety presently. And they're saying that the roads are a great concern. So that doesn't add up. So thank you for your time, and I am voting no.
Other discussion? All right. Seeing none. None further. We're going to go to vote now. To be clear, Mr. Depot, this only needs a 50% simple majority. But even if this is approved, it has to have funding. All right. We'll go to, you may register your vote. Supervisor. Okay, Supervisor Teske. All right, so we have 12 yes, 8 no. That motion passes with a simple majority, so we move on however, to the next motion whenever you are ready.
Initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds and or promissory notes for the construction of a new county jail facility.
Okay. Supervisor Poppy,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion, please. I'd like to make a motion to move the jail project funding forward to option E. To have the county board approve additional 2 million, which would move the debt to an issue from 21 million to 23. This would move the assessed value from 100,000 from 1994 to 2988, or from 200,000 assessed value to 3987 to 5976 assessed value. I've talked to the town board, or town board of Anape. I've talked to a majority of people that I knew were, I mean, I was at the fair, talked to a lot of people down there. I didn't hear a no. Our county finance director told tonight that option E would be our best option to not take the funds at every savings account we have and use. We currently would have a better chance to keep our bond rating. Our bond rating now, I believe, is from Moody is A1. Is that correct, Paul?
From Moody's, we have an A1. From S&P, we have an AA minus.
Thank you. This project has to move forward. Our sheriff's department, our safety committee meetings that we went through, and there were many. It was a long drawn out affair, and I think we need to move this project forward. Thank you.
okay, so there's a motion.
Thank you.
Supervisor Poppy's motion is to approve funding with option E.
Correct.
Second, and that is seconded by Supervisor Patricia. And this motion, in order to move forward at all, Mr. Depo, needs 15 yes votes,
Yes.
correct? And so be clear on that. Discussion. Supervisor Romden, I see.
Just in the resolution before us, there's a blank space in the no for therefore it be resolved. So that number would be 23 million. Based on the motion, that's
21 million was what was previously approved. So this would be an addition of 2 million. You'd be at 23 million total.
that's assuming option E, correct?
Correct.
It also was Mr. Poppy made a motion. Was there a second to that motion?
There was, it was seconded by Supervisor Patricia.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, further discussion on this, Supervisor Teske?
I'm just not in favor of using all the fund money.
Other discussion? All right, oh, Supervisor Patricia.
One of the reasons why I am in favor of this is not because I enjoy seeing my own taxes go up, as I said earlier. It's that I feel that moving forward on the jail is important. And the long-term cost savings to our taxpayers is going to be more than offset by waiting. And as Supervisor Dell and others that I've spoken to have said, they don't see the cost option or the cost decreasing with options of either pushing this down the road, bidding at a different time. One of the folks that I talked to was concerned about the costs of doing it during the winter. The folks that I spoke to said that that is a minor cost in relation to pushing it down the road and the increase of cost that we would incur with that. And I would once again say that if we see a need for the jail and everybody, as Supervisor Kroll said, in favor of trying to get something done, my fear is that in the cost, in trying to save a nickel we're going to end up tripping over a penny or over a $20 bill and spending exponentially more by trying to eke out a little bit more in savings.
Other questions, further discussion? Supervisor Lazansky. You need to have, you gotta have green light. They won't be able to hear you.
Push it in.
Sorry, I can barely hear you. My hearing is stellar.
It is.
Okay.
So if you vote no, like we've been saying, you're kicking the can down the road. You are passing this on to my grandchildren. I will probably be gone. You're passing it on to my children, my grandchildren, your grandchildren. It is going to cost more money. In the short term, you are not saving anything. You are just costing more money to the taxpayer if you are not voting to proceed now.
Other discussion? All right, Mr. Depot, there was, you look, you were trying to say something earlier. Was there something,
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that we're clear on the motion and
Yes.
whether or not we have an amendment. So we had a motion and a second. I'm assuming that motion is by you, Gary, and then
it
second.
was, yes. Motion by Supervisor
As was
Poppy,
stated by
second by
you.
Patricia.
Okay, so the motion on the floor then is to proceed under option E.
Yes.
With the $2 million of additional borrowing.
Yes.
Okay.
And this requires 15 yes votes. All right. Well, wait, there's all of a sudden everything lit up when I turned away a second. Supervisor Romden.
Just to speak a little bit to the proposed item or option E. Last week in July, when the Finance Committee met and the Jail Study Committee met, the Jail Study Committee recommended proceeding under option C. When we got to the Finance Committee tonight, that's the first we saw at the Finance Committee of option E, which I don't think I have a problem with that at all. I don't think the people that voted in favor of option C have a problem with that either. It's just that to be consistent, I think we stuck with the same motion that was passed by the Jail Study Committee, and that was proceeding using option C. So it's not a big deal, but I will support option E.
Supervisor Patricia. Oh, wait, Supervisor Gillett.
I just wanted to comment a little bit about the documents that Sheriff Joski sent and the uncertainty of what will be required if we do not pass the funding in terms of remodeling the old jail. That's laid out in length, but I guess the one message that has been long, it's highlighted from the state inspector. It's been said almost over 2 years ago. And I quote, "As long as Kewaunee County is continuing to move forward toward the new jail project, the long litany of physical plant corrections would be placed on the back burner in an attempt to save unnecessary costs to the county. You are in fact working toward a solution. Should that process stop, we have to go back and revisit the deficiencies and move for correction. And hopefully that can be corrected. We've operated, there was a recall in 2000. There was planning that occurred before that. This has been a 30-year liability for this county. We are a day away from an instant happening, and God forbid that would happen. But we've heard what we're subjecting ourselves to, and that will be money that we are not able to recoup. What if we get caught up in court costs? Those are just monies that we will have to pay, and they are not utilized, and maybe they will be used from general fund accounts. So I think the jail inspector has been mostly cooperative for us, but that relationship could become a bit more challenging if we're not able to come across with the funding for the resolution that we just passed to move forward. Thank you.
Supervisor Patricia.
I just want to ask Mr. Kunish once again with the with the option two and the availability for our general funds, we're going to be not dipping into the general funds. We'll be using Dominion and Bug Tussle funds from that. Is that correct?
You're talking about option E?
Yeah, I'm sorry, option
Yes.
E.
Option E still has us taking 1.9 million from the general fund, but that it keeps us at 45% of the fund balance compared to the annual expenditures, which is well above our fund balance policy.
We're dipping into the surplus of the general.
The surplus, yes, above and beyond what our fund balance policy says we need.
So to reiterate, we're not dipping into what is currently in the general fund with that option. We are dipping into the surplus that we anticipate having. That would be going into it. We'd be putting less into our savings account.
No, it's already in our savings account. We have, at this moment, at the end of 2022, about 62%. We'll be going down to 45%. Again, still well above our calculated fund balance policy of 25 to 35%.
But we're dipping into that surplus.
Yeah, the surplus is what builds the fund balance. So
Yes.
they're kind of one and the same. One leads to the other.
And then we will not be defunding EDC or anything else. We'll be fine. We'll be with that, we will be moving, because I want to make sure EDC is funded as well. With that, we would not be getting rid of EDC funding. We'll just be funding that from a different source. Is that correct?
And you're talking about the KCEDC?
Yeah.
Yes, they get 40,000 a year. They have received 40,000 per year. If the board continues that, that can come from the general fund like had been proposed the last 3 years by the administrator. And I believe previous, that's where it came from, because we did not have an economic development fund to source that from. So that would still be a part of the routine annual budget process for that amount.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions, further discussion? All right, we'll move to the vote. We have 12 yes, 8 no. Motion fails. All right. Resolution, the next resolution is that, whoops. Is the next resolution relevant?
It's not necessarily moot. I suppose the board could still decide to go forward under the only option that, option D, which is the only option that remains, which is the same option that Paul suggested you don't proceed under, so.
D as in dog. Supervisor Romden.
The resolution on the approving the allocation and transfer of non-budgeted funds, that resolution, as it appears before you, is based on option C.
Okay.
That's correct. So we could amend, or the board could choose to amend that to remove that $1 million in additional bond proceeds and continue under option D. That would require someone from the board moving.
All right, I see no motion. Moving on, the next resolution, I do not believe is relevant at this point. There was 12-8. 12-8, we needed a 2/3. So what was your question, clerk? Mr. Depo was, no, that was not an amendment. That was a motion. Sorry, we have a parliamentary question. You need me to take a brief recess on this? Okay. We're clear? All right. So the next the next resolution on approving allocation transfer of non-budgeted funds. That motion is done. Do you need me to take a recess clean this up? All right, we're gonna take a 10-minute recess just to make sure that Corporation Council's got all loose ends tied up. So 10-minute recess. That was 10 minutes on the head. All right. So it appears that we are at, it appears that we are at 14. There's no consideration of ordinance from read at previous county board meetings. We're at communications, resolutions from other counties. There are none. Kewaunee County events. All right. No events. I guess now that the fair is over, you know, the party's over. Chair comments. Bug Tussle will be here at next month's meeting. I know they've got a lot of projects going on and, you know, there were some people had questions on where they're at and so forth on those. So I decided it would be simplest for me to get Jason Weed here at next month's meeting, be able to share with us on that. Also, any outstanding personnel matters will be addressed by the interim administrator. So I'm going to consider those to be taken care of. Meeting dates for future county board meeting. August 15th is previously scheduled. September 12th is scheduled. Would be looking at October 17th as proposed. Can you make it on your pad, please, Supervisor Poppy? Supervisor Poppy makes the motion. Supervisor Romden second. We're prepared to go to a vote on that or no? Does that work? Oh, we can do voice vote on that? Oh, fabulous. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn. Supervisor Bullenweider, second by Supervisor Langto. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.